Oppenheimer. Movie review, scientists and spirituality. Hello, this is Shores of Infinity with your host Chris, and today I'd like to talk about the movie Oppenheimer, but also about scientists and spirituality in general. It's a good opportunity. There have been a lot of quantum physics scientists, and also right before, like Einstein, famous scientists, mostly physicists and chemists who have reached some level of spirituality by following their work to their last consequence. On the Hawkins scale, science can get up to 499. Not beyond 499, but up till. And quite a few scientists have reached somewhere between 399 and 499 and were also awake. Hawkins also calibrated Oppenheimer, and he calibrated him at 435 early in his life and 70 later in his life. And this you can see very well in the movie. First of all, they found an actor who really looks like Oppenheimer did. And secondly, the whole movie is really well done. Director-wise, picture-wise, special effects-wise, the actors, the script, everything. And it also has quite an impact, like a bomb. So you see this brilliant scientist who's open to everything, to ideas and how the universe works and so on, and then how he gets sucked into politics and the industrial military complex, and then loses his vision. Interestingly enough, I'm just reading a book about life in the Soviet Union between 1935 and 1945, and then the early years of East Germany under Soviet rule. It's quite interesting how so many people, how many intellectuals in the 20s and 30s were interested in early forms of communism and then disillusioned by it later. Because in spiral dynamics terms, the ideal of communism is green. A lot of communists were blue or red or orange, but the idea is green. Not what the socialists made out of it, but the original concept by Marx. That is why many intellectuals who were centered in spiral dynamics orange were of course drawn to it because it was one possible step towards green. But many scientists like Albert Einstein and Niels Bohr and Werner Heisenberg and Oppenheimer probably too in the beginning, they were also drawn to something more, yellow and turquoise in spiral dynamics terms. If you spend your whole life in thinking about how the universe works, then of course at some point you have to also think about what is life, what is the human being, is there a God, what is the universe, what is energy, what is life, what is consciousness. So physicists who later became philosophers like Heisenberg, for example, who Hawkins calibrates at 465, why do they stop at the late 400s? Why can they not do this one more step into the 500s? Because it means surrender. Everything beyond 500 is always surrender. Surrender to a higher principle than mathematics or physics or chemistry or science in general. It doesn't have to be religion, but it has to be a higher principle. And many scientists are atheists. And then the limit is 499. Nowadays, science is, of course, the new religion, meaning science has become mainstream and it is used to shut people up and telling them, oh, that's not scientific, which is usually not true, but it's being used. Before it used to be, oh, that's against the church, and now it's against the science mainstream. And of course, that is an oxymoron. There's no there cannot be a science mainstream. Science mainstream means stuff that is outdated. In spiral dynamics terms, blue. So at some point you have to choose if you stay in orange or even go back to blue, or if you move on towards green, yellow and turquoise. The Oppenheimer movie reminds me a little bit of the Wilhelm Reich movie. There's a movie called The Strange Case of Wilhelm Reich, or Der Fall Wilhelm Reich. This was one scientist who didn't stop at 499. He was a psychiatrist and psychologist, a student of Freud, but he also dabbled in physics and invented lots of stuff, lots of very interesting stuff, a bit Nikola Tesla-like. Just like Nikola Tesla, he got huge problems for propagating stuff that was not mainstream science and not mainstream psychology either. Very, very fringe, very ahead of his time. He was talking about life energy, which of course is a big no-go in science, in quotation marks. He was very spiritual in the 500s and in turquoise, and yeah, he got into even bigger problems than Oppenheimer. So he really did get arrested and then died of heart failure in his prison cell, but of course heart failure is the definition of death, not necessarily a cause. Also very good movie, very good actors here, Klaus Maria Brandauer, an Austrian actor, as Wilhelm Reich. Very nice. And both movies are very shocking. And because of what happened to these people, and in the past it was the church against Giordano Bruno and Galilei and so on, and in the present times it's fellow scientists attacking their brethren like Oppenheimer and Wilhelm Reich and others for stretching the boundaries or even destroying the boundaries of knowledge and consciousness and worldviews. So the two movies as such, they're not spiritual movies, but they're about spiritual topics, because that's our world. We're living in a world dominated by what is called science, and it's very hard to get from this very rational, materialistic perspective to a spiritual one. And once you're there, you might get into trouble for it. But also I wanted to take the opportunity to speak about scientists and how scientists often, if they're real scientists, open to everything, because you have to be open. You cannot try to prove something you already think is right. You have to be open to all kinds of results. That's science. Like also yoga is a science. It's a science of the mind. And then you basically have to end up at 499. And then the journey starts. Recently, I reread Bernadette Roberts again a little bit. There will be a video coming on Bernadette Roberts soon. And she kind of says, enlightenment, what we call enlightenment, that's not really hard to reach. That's easy. But that's the first step. That's when it gets interesting and what comes beyond that. So if you question reality and if you question the mainstream, if you question the brainwashing of society, then you have to end up at 499 and you have to wake up. And then what do? Do you put all your energy into creating a weapon of mass destruction, or do you put it in something else? Like consciousness research or healing or some such. Okay, that's it for today. Thank you to all my patrons. Thank you for joining me as a patron. Thank you for watching and subscribing and giving this video a thumbs up. It helps others find the channel. See you soon.